You do not want to miss this episode. We're digging into one of my favorite business books on how to become an entrepreneur, how to run a business. Going to be hugely valuable. Let's get going. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Control and Compound. I'm Darren Mitchell. Joining me as always, Christina Wyatt. Christina, how you doing?
Hey, Darren, I am doing great today. It's a great day to do a book review, and I love this book too, so I'm excited to dig into this one.
Yeah, we're going through the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber today, and there's been more than 2 million copies of this book sold, and I'm super excited about this. I read this book years ago, and I keep going back to it and read it. I think it's an awesome book. If you're going to start a business or you are a business owner, even if you're an advanced business owner, I think it's a great one.
Yeah, it's definitely a game changer. If you're in business, you're, like you said, planning on getting to or struggling in a business, that's another one. You're going to want to pick up a copy of the book. But we are going to go through some of the main principles today in the book and do a bit of a review. So you're going to get some tips and tricks from the book as we go through the podcast today. Now, before we get started, though, I do want to remind you, if you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, please make sure that you subscribe and leave that 5-star review. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, please make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so you always know when new content is coming out. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Control and Compound on Instagram and TikTok.
All right, let's get going. So the E-Myth. So again, I characterize this as a foundational book. It's not going to be the only book you need to run a business, but I think it's a great starting point. When I think of if you're a real estate investor, if you haven't, you should. The foundational book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Right? Again, it's not going to teach you everything you need to know, but it's a great place to start. And I think if you're an entrepreneur, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is also a great book for that. But I think if you're an entrepreneur, you want to be an entrepreneur, or you want to know how to run business, or you just want to be a better employee and know how businesses should be run, the E-Myth is a great starting point. And I think so many things have evolved from this because, it's not a new book. It's been around for a long time. I look at the EOS that we use, Entrepreneur Operating System. We use that every day in our business. And I see, not a direct descendant of that, but certainly a lot of the same characteristics from the E-Myth. There's a training program called Entrepreneurial, which is basically the the E-Myth Revisited software version sort of that. Even Strategic Coach, when I'm at Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan's group, I see a lot of the same characteristics from the E-Myth. So great foundational book. If you want to get more advanced, I love the Dan Sullivan series, The Gap, Not the Gain, Who Not How, who we talked about fairly often on this podcast. And then the 10X is easier than 2X. And again, that 10X is easier than 2X. I really see that kind of foundation from that, from the E-Myth. Dan takes it to next levels. But this is where you start, and then maybe some of those Strategic Coach books if you want to get more advanced. But you should always start here.
Yeah, it's a great foundational book. So let's go bring it to the basics of the book and start from the beginning. So what does the E in E-Myth stand for? Well, it's the entrepreneurial myth. So what is the myth that Michael Gerber states in the book? It's that just because you're a great technician, so by technician, he means, a baker, an electrician, a plumber, a financial advisor, just because you're a great technician, that's automatically going to make you a great entrepreneur. And that's just not correct. That's the myth that he brings light to into the book.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, when they think of people they know that are promoted, can probably even not entrepreneur, but just promoted into a position. I go back to my corporate days where we had a great salesperson. Oh, they're great at sales. We should make them the sales manager. Well, maybe they're a horrible manager. They don't know how to motivate people. They don't know how to manage people. They don't know how to hire and recruit people. But everyone thought, because they're a salesperson, they can be a great sales manager, and that's a completely different skill set. So I think the book really emphasizes it's completely different skill set to be an entrepreneur versus being a great technician. And the key points we're going to cover on this is they kind of break it down into three different positions: the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur. And those are three distinct categories, and we're going to talk about each one of them. And then Michael Gerber talks about why businesses fail. And again, you're going to hear this in a lot of business books, is they fail to work on the business because they're too busy working in the business. And we're going to break that down. And then the false assumption that if you can do the technical job, what he would say, maybe you're a great financial advisor and you're like, oh, I should be an entrepreneur now. Well, again, that's a false assumption. Just because you're a good electrician doesn't mean you're going to be great at owning a company with a bunch of electricians. So we're going to break that down. So excited to kind of dig through each one of these. So let's start, Christina, with that technician, manager, and entrepreneur. And we'll kind of talk about each. So the first one is the technician. That's the doer, right? Who's the technician? Well, in my electrician example, the electrician is the person that actually does the job. They love getting their hands dirty, and they often start a business because they're good at that. Michael's book, it's a baker. Hey, I'm a really good baker. I should start a bakery. Well, those are two very different things. The second position is the manager, and the manager is more of the planner. And we all have planners in our life. They organize and systematize things. And again, completely different skill set than the technician. And finally, the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur is the visionary. And this is, again, a key part of any business, but a part that gets overmissed. If you're just a great technician and you're not a good manager and you're not a good visionary, unless you can get people in those positions, it's going to be tough for you to be successful in business.
Yeah, Gerber actually says that if you want to be a great entrepreneur, you have to have a balance of those three personalities. So a little bit of each of them. And I think we looked at that a lot as we've gone through the EOS process, because I do think a lot of these foundations, they continue to grow. And we use EOS as our foundation. And we have listed, we have the visionary, we've got the integrator, we've got the managers. So it makes sense. You need all of those people. You need all those different people and personalities in order to run a successful business, for sure.
Yeah, and again, like, go back to, this is foundational for a lot of things that have come after, like the Kolbe profile that we've gone through. So Kolbe is a personality profile where you go through and it puts you in kind of four categories. And the two that really stick with me is the quick start. That's more the visionary. Ideas. I am a wonderful quick start. And then a high quick start. And then the next one is follow through. And that's more the manager, the day-to-day, the process person. And, don't tell my wife, but sometimes I'm not great at that kind of stuff. And again, that's the importance of finding someone that is. And Christina, you're obviously an incredible follow-through, process-orientated people. So finding those people that match the skill set you have and filling in the skill set that you don't have, I think is phenomenal.
Yeah, and for business owners listening or, trying to build out their business, don't fall into that technician trap where you want to go back to your comfort zone. So I think that happens to a lot of entrepreneur or business owners, stuck in that technician zone. They get stuck there. It's their comfort zone. They don't want to move into that next step, which kind of brings us to one of the most quoted insights from the E-Myth Revisited, which is you need to be working on your business, not just in your business. And I think the comfort zone is in the business for sure. So Darren, why don't you give us a difference in how this has played out with different business owners that you've worked with?
Yeah, I working on the business, I think I actually love it, but I used to struggle with it a lot because I wasn't setting time for it. Like, I know what a business should look like and how it should run, but it's hard to get there sometimes. Like, we all know about the McDonaldization of businesses, which is basically McDonald's was famous for the reason they grew so fast is they basically had a manual. Every process was documented where it says you cook the fries for 90 seconds, shake 4 times with salt, or shake 4 times, put it down, salt 5 times, put it in a cup, boom, you've got French fries. So if that person that does the fries wasn't in, the next person could be trained very quickly to do the exact same job because they took the time to process or to document those kind of things. But when I go back to working on the business, that's why I absolutely love Strategic Coach, EOS, some of the things we do. I spend 2 days a quarter. I fly to Toronto and I spend 2 days in a room with a bunch of other entrepreneurs. And all I do is work on the business. How are we going to grow the business? Then you're surrounded by like-minded people that it's like, oh, what are you doing for AI? We're looking to do an AI audit. What are you doing for compliance? What about hiring? How are you finding great people? So you're always thinking about growth. Dan Sullivan's all about 10xing your business. How do you do that? But finding that dedicated time, I think is huge. Our weekly EOS meetings, I love dedicated time to work on your business, and you've got to set that aside. You've got to put it in your calendar.
Yeah, I was just going to say that as well. The EOS meetings have been great for me, especially we're just coming off our 2-day annual retreat where we sat down and we did our planning. 1 year, 2 year, 3, all of the planning, like 2 days in a boardroom offsite, working with the leadership team, deciding what the vision looks like, deciding what we need to focus on as a business to get us to those 5-year goals. And if we didn't put that in the calendar, it wouldn't happen, right? It's great. We love to say that we're going to take the time, we're going to do it, but you get caught in that trap where you're working in the business instead of on it. So absolutely putting it in the calendar. And I do love the EOS principle where you have to be off site, because I find when you're in the office and you schedule that time to work and people are dropping in and they want to chat and things like that, love it. But being off site and focusing in on what you're doing and what you want to be building for the business is just so important. And I love that how we leave. When we're doing it, we do leave. We go away, we get into a boardroom off site, and we just spend the time focusing, working on the business instead of in it.
Yeah, I know Joe, who's helping us with the EOS. It's like, we're like, well, we get this beautiful boardroom now. Like, Joe, why can't we meet there instead of go rent this other space? And he's like, no, you've got to be off site. And he was right.
Yep.
Because we try, Christina, when we're in the office and we're trying to do stuff on the business in the office, something comes up where somebody needs us, somebody needs to ask us a question. Next thing you know, we're just going to send a quick email. But I want to go back to working on the business. So I remember early in my my career, back when the entire business consisted of 1.5 people, including me, and I hired a coach. And this goes back to that dedicated time. I hired a coach at the time, which again I encourage people. Same idea about working on your business. When you hire a coach, that's what your coach is really doing: dedicated time to work on your business. And he had me go through this exercise, and he goes, okay, I want you to figure out your top 10 clients last year, and then figure out how much money you made off them and how many hours it took you. So what are you getting paid an hour there? Okay. Now I want you to think of all the paperwork you do. How much could you farm that out for? And at the time it was like $20 an hour. And I was like, okay. And he goes, why are you spending any time doing that when you should be spending all your time in front of clients? And that was when I made the jump and said, okay, I need a full-time assistant. This is what I need in order to meet clients this is what I love to do. This is what I enjoy doing. This is what I'm better at. And then I got away from paperwork and, with few exceptions, try not to look back as far as paperwork goes, because I identified right early on, it's not a strength of mine. So I need to surround myself with people that do have that strength. So EOS has been great for us doing that. The leadership team meeting every week, I think, has been great to that. But Christina, let's kind of walk through some of the key concepts of the book, and then we can kind of break down each one.
Yeah. So starting with the first step, which is really the vision. So Gerber says the first thing you have to do is the vision and the purpose exercise. And we've talked about this a bit and how I had said we were just coming off that EOS annual retreat. But that's when we sit down and we look at the 1 year, the 3 year, the 5 year vision. Like we want to look out farther than just next week so that we can make our plans accordingly. So having that vision, but then putting the exercise into place where, like for us, we break it down into quarters. So every 90 days, we want to hit a goal that is going to hit our larger vision, right? So everything we're doing is working towards that 1, 3, 5 year vision in each of those quarters. So it's important, and I think it's really important as a leadership team for everybody to be on the same track with the vision, and not just the leadership team, the whole team. Really, we share it with everybody at our office. We go through the vision so everybody knows what we're working towards, and then we can align our goals strategically to hit that long-term vision. So that's where you want to start with that planning.
Yeah, great point on the vision, Christina, because I think some people, and I've been in organizations years ago where, okay, here's the vision. And then, okay, great. And then like 2 years later, you're like, oh, let's review the vision. No, I think what's really worked well for us is that, okay, we've got 1, 3, and 5 year goals, as you mentioned, and then you've got a million things you want to do. But then we really break it down into those 90-day goals where we're like, okay, what can we do in the next quarter? What are the most important things we can do? And we're only going to pick a handful. You can't pick 20. You're going to pick a handful of those things and say, this is what we're going to work on as company goals. And these were individual goals as well. But that's all we're going to focus on as far as the growing the business in the next 90 days, because you can't do everything. And I find a lot of people when they have 20 things to do to grow their business, they don't get to any of them because it's overwhelming. But if you lay out the long-term vision and then you break it down to 90-day blocks to say, what can I do in the next 90 days? And will that help me grow towards that 1, 3, 5 year goal? It's been great for us. So the second piece there is, what is your primary aim? What is your personal purpose in life? So why are you doing this? I think a lot of people skip this step. There's nothing wrong working for money. Lots of us work for money. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you take it to the next level and say, what is it you're trying to do? And for us, Christina, we want to help Canadian families. We want to help Canadian families grow their wealth, protect their wealth, and retire comfortably without stress and risk. And that gets us up in the morning. So yes, we're a successful business. We want to be more successful. We want to grow. But knowing that every day, the more we do, the more Canadians we help, that purpose, it drives us and it drives our team too. Like we feel good about what we do, because when we meet with someone, they're better off than before they met with us. And, whether you make a lot of money on every sale or not, it really, if you're always helping people, it's going to keep driving you forward, and it's going to get you beyond the numbers.
Yeah, people talk about their why and why they're doing it. And it's very important, not just in life, but in your business as well. You want to make sure that you've got that purpose. The next one on here is strategic objectives. So this is walking, and Gerber actually walks through the steps of setting a strategic objective. So those are things like your financial goals, market share goals, scaling goals, all of your goals, but setting them up strategically. So we've kind of touched on this when we talked about building out that 90-day, those 90-day quarters and picking the goals that are going to align with the overall vision. This is important too, but you also want to make sure that you're setting these goals smart. We've done podcasts on this before, but making sure that the goals are achievable. We've got all of the factors in line so that they're going to get done, right? Because a goal without a plan is that, I don't know how that ends, but I know it's not good.
It's not good.
I know it's not good, right? You need a plan.
Bad.
You need a plan. So you want to set out that strategic objective to hitting those goals.
Goal without a plan's a wish.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. But it's not good. It's not good.
All right. So the fourth sort of key concept was organizational strategy. And I do remember reading this book years ago, and when I was a one-person show and building my organizational chart, which was like, I was scared to show to anyone, because it was like, okay, who do you think you are? It's like, oh, I've got this department and this department and this department. But again, it's beneficial. And then, more recent years, the EOS, when we did the EOS, where we lay out the organizational chart where we need to be with our 5-year growth plan. What departments are we going to have? Okay, great. We narrowed it down to 4 different departments. Then we have a visionary, we have an implementer, we have all these different positions that we need. And then under each position, okay, how many people are under this person? What are they doing? And then we put who's doing that role now. And like any, growing business, we're wearing multiple hats. Christina, sometimes I think you're wearing like 5 or 6 hats on top here, because we're in multiple seats. So, well, yeah, I'm still doing this role, and I'm doing this role, and I'm doing this role. But when you identify those positions, that's how you can grow and hire for those positions. So if you need a VP of marketing or operations or finance or whatever it is, okay, great. As the entrepreneur, you're going to wear multiple hats. There's no question. But the growth strategy is, how do I get out of those multiple hats so I'm just wearing the one hat that I am the best at? And if that's visionary, you should be the visionary. If that's operations, you should be operations. And we joke when we hire people, because we show them our organizational chart, where we are, where we're growing. And we tell, new person first day, if we think you will be a better president and CEO than Christina or I, you can have that job. We just want to put the best person in that best seat. And that's been really helpful in our growth strategy.
Yeah, for sure. The right people, right seats. It's not even just the growth strategy is important, but you talked about when we're adding new employees and we're going through the hiring process. That's huge. Having that organization, having that accountability chart makes it so much easier to find the right team members that are going to work with everybody else, right?
And I'd add too, it's also great for new employees to see where the company is going.
Yeah.
Where they're going, okay, we're wearing multiple hats in these roles here. We want someone to be in these positions. So when you hire a new employee, they can go, oh, there's going to be positionings opening up down the road as this team grows. This is an organization I'd like to be part of.
Yep, for sure. So the next one we have is system strategy. And this one's probably my favorite. So the E-Myth is huge on creating systems for everything. And you made a great point when you talked about the McDonald's system and having, 3 shakes of salt and whatnot. To run a successful business, you need those types of systems in place that if you were not there for a week, you were not there for a month, that business is going to continue to go on without you because there's processes in place that they can jump in and they can fill those seats while you're away. And I know right now in our office, we're going through the documentation of the processing, and EOS has helped us get there. And we're using playbooks now, and it's a great process to go through. Is getting all that documentation done. It's very rewarding to see it all come together. But there's definitely a lot to it. There's a lot of work behind it. It's a big project in our office right now, getting everything documented. But it's going to make things so much better long term. When we onboard a new employee, they're going to know exactly what to expect. The processes that they need to follow. Training's going to be a breeze, and it's just overall, it just for everybody on the team, it's going to make it better having those systems and those processes in place that we all know that we have to follow. There's never a doubt, right?
There's never a doubt, and I think one of the things that's really changed in the last number of years is technology is helping with this so much, because the ability to one of my mentors once said, whenever I solve a problem, always leave an asset behind. And what he meant by that is if he answers a question for an employee or an employee answers a question for a client, document and record it. So the next person comes along, has the same question. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Oh, we have Q&As for employees. We're implementing AI chatbot within the internal employee handbook and stuff to say, if you want to, ask this question, well, great. Here's resources. We can get that question answered. So they're not, maybe taking my time or your time to answer a question that we've already answered for someone else 6 months ago or 12 months ago, because we have that documented. And again, we find videos really simple now. So I love the systems.
All right. So jumping into some practical tips, I think you're going to start with this one, Darren, the first practical tip there.
Yeah, I think, and again, whether it's EOS, Strategic Coach, whether it's, there's all kinds of different coaching programs out there. I think all of them are going to talk about working on your business, and all of them are going to say the same thing. You need dedicated time to do that. As busy people, we all know if you don't fill up your calendar is going to fill up itself. There's going to be, maybe unproductive things, maybe, great things that you think are important at the time. But if you don't dedicate time every week, every quarter, every month to work on your business, so in your calendar for the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, year, whatever it is, dedicate time that you're going to work on your business. We do the dedicated quarterly full day. I do the 2-day strategic coach every quarter. And then we do a leadership team meeting. And then periodically, I am going to book off afternoons, mornings, or full days to work on the business. And without that dedicated time, it's going to be really hard to grow, because you're just going to get caught up in the day-to-day stuff, working in your business, not on your business. So it doesn't matter what program you follow. Entrepreneurs need dedicated time to work on their business. But I encourage people, if it's not in your calendar and dedicated, it's just not going to happen.
Great tip, Darren. Absolutely. So the next one I have is start with small steps. When it comes to documenting processes, I will tell you that it's overwhelming when you first started looking at it, when we first started doing it. But you can start in small steps. So actually, the first tip, if you are a small business right now, start documenting. You can have every process in the world, and I'll tell you, we've always been process oriented, but a lot of it was in my head. To be quite honest, it was written down, but not in the best format possible for people to be able to find it. If you're starting out now, start immediately. Start documenting immediately every process that you do, getting that done. If you've already grown, start small steps at a time. So as you're doing things, so onboarding a new client, you do it every day. These days, as you mentioned, there's a lot of technology that can help you. Quick video recordings, AI's there. It's your best friend when it comes to documenting processes. So start small, one process at a time. Use videos, use transcribers that can take that video, turn it into the document for the process. Use the tools that you have, and one by one, work through it. Another piece on top of that too is get your team to help. So, and this kind of dives into my next one, is delegate or outsource anything that doesn't require your specific expertise. When I was looking at the overwhelming process side of things, I was like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get to all of these processes. Like, I'll never get through them. And then my team stepped up and we're like, well, I do this every day, and I do this and I do that. And they have a full spreadsheet all outlined on who is going to help where and what, and getting these processes documented. Because if you've built a good team, just like we have, they could even do it better than you at the end of the day. Like, really, they're that good. Rely on your team members. They're there for a reason, and it can be very helpful. So anything that you can outsource, and I know it can be hard to let things go. I have been there, and it's hard for me to let things go. But it's
You're
the
getting
best
much
I've ever,
better at
But
it.
it's the best as I've ever been, is having people help me. So that's great.
And I think that goes back to that who, not how. Because not only do we look internally to say who can help us with this, but then we have external partners that we help. Whether it be a virtual assistant, whether it be a contract worker that comes in and does a specific project, helping us with HubSpot, maybe helping us with landing pages, maybe AI. So it doesn't just have to be internal. If there's an external who that you can hire on a contract basis for a project, that's going to free your time up so you can focus on the stuff you should be focusing on. Huge benefit.
Yeah, definitely. So next thing that we want to talk about is a real life application. So Darren, could you share a story about how systematizing a process has freed up time for you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's funny. You free up time, and then it does get filled with something else because as you grow a business. But when I started out, I was the only one who met with clients, and I knew I couldn't work 3 times or double the hours. I was already working 1 million hours a week. And how can I grow the business without working twice as much, meeting with twice as many clients? And it was really tough to your point, Christina, to okay, I am going to let someone else meet with clients and let someone else do that. And, you always think you can do it better. And then lo and behold, Christina, you're incredible at how you're able to meet with clients. And I learn stuff from you now, but that initial getting over that of, okay, I've got to let stuff go, because you can't do it all yourself. If you're going to grow, you have to let stuff go. And then as you advance and now part owner of CNC, you had to let stuff go that you used to do. And then the people we trained to do the stuff you did, they had to let stuff go to the new person. And then every time we hire, it's tough, even like internally in our operation side. Some people are like, well, I do this. And we're like, well, you used to do that, but now you're doing this other role that's more important for like 4 or 5 people instead of 1. We need you to focus on that. That's your unique ability. That's what you're special at. We need to take the stuff that is maybe not as high level skill for you and put it down, and we're going to hire someone else to do that. So, getting people to let go, getting people to identify this is the only way you're going to grow, I think has been instrumental for us, documenting those things. So that's been great. Again, don't be afraid to pretend you're a big organization in the planning period, because you've got to see that vision of where you're going to be in order to be able to grow your business. All right, Christina, let's kind of wrap up some of the some of the things here we talked about today, because we covered a lot, but I think the key here is you gotta, number one, you gotta let it go. We talked about that, but you gotta let it go. If you're an entrepreneur, I think it's the biggest challenge entrepreneurs face. You're the electrician. You do all the electrician stuff. How are you going to do more just yourself? You've got to let it go. And I think that would be kind of step one. Skip, or if you don't do that, it's going to be hard to grow.
Yep. Great one. And the next one would be skipping the strategy step. So don't just dive straight into tactics. I already said it before. If you don't have a plan, it's not going to work. So go to the basics, build out those visions, build out those strategic goals, and then leap in. Which does bring me to the last one, which is treating the book as theory only. So this happens to a lot of people. You pick up the book. It sounds great. I'm definitely going to implement this, but in 6 months. Do not do that. Start immediately. If you've listened to this podcast and you like the sounds of it, pick up a copy of the book, but don't just stop there. Go into your calendar and block off a time. Block off a time for a vision day where you can sit and you can work on the business instead of in the business. If you're an entrepreneur, take the steps, right? Take the steps to actually implement what you've learned and what we've talked about today.
Yeah. What I find helpful for me when you talk about taking those steps, if you end up not taking the step, maybe the step you picked was too big. So I'll go back to sort of when I wrote my first book. It was, okay, I am going to write a chapter today on this. And then you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get a chapter done. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to write a page. I'm going to write one page. Make the task smaller, because if you don't take action, that just snowballs into never taking action. So, okay, instead of a chapter, I'm going to write a page. And I'll be honest, some days it was, I'm going to write a paragraph. I am going to write a paragraph. But if you do that, you took an actionable step. And then once you start taking action gets easier. It becomes a habit. So then the next day you write a couple paragraphs. Then that third day you finish that chapter. And maybe the fifth day you'd write a whole chapter in one day. So again, same to your business. If you say, here's my vision of where the company's going. Oh, I can't imagine doing all that. Great. Break it down into the smallest step. It's identify the first person I'm going to need to hire.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe that's a virtual assistant. Maybe that's a part-time person, whatever it is. Break it down into a manageable task where you can take action and start leading towards those goals you have for the company. All right. So the book's Michael Gerber's The E-Myth Revisited. We think it's a perfect starting point if you're an entrepreneur. If you're an existing business, there's absolutely nothing ever wrong with going back, reviewing the basics. And I think this is a foundational book that every entrepreneur has to read. And if you've read it and you haven't read it in years, I encourage you to reread it, because you will learn something new from it each and every time. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching this episode of Control and Compound. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button so you never miss a new episode. And if you're ready to learn more, head to our website, controlandcompound.com. The link's below.